Hello, all. Welcome to another episode of No More Distractions. Today, I brought back to the studio my sister Jo to talk about mindfulness in fashion. So, this time, it's a different kind of mindfulness we explore. We talk about mindful consumerism. We unpack the different terms of slow, vegan, and sustainable fashion, something that we should all get us thinking. Each and every single one of us are consumers of products, and our everyday decisions can have a huge impact. Are you ready to listen to my conversation with Jo? Hi, Jo. Welcome to another episode of No More Distractions. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah. So I gotta say, our last episode on hypnosis was a pretty good episode. Like, I got really good feedback and everybody loved you. So I'm very excited to do this again with you.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so
Yeah.
glad people liked it and we're able to have such a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, I think the topic was just a little bit different. I feel like people don't talk often about hypnosis, and you coming in here and sharing like a real experience you had, I think was really like groundbreaking, you know?
Awesome.
So today we have you back here to chat, and we're going to bring again a little bit a different topic than what we normally talk about in this podcast. So we've talked a lot about spiritual topics, about how to manifest your dreams to come true and how to align your mind, body, and soul. And along the same lines, there's another topic that we should be thinking about every day. And it really goes hand in hand with mindfulness, right? So I think when we do our everyday shopping, we don't always mindfully do it, right? We just think that, oh, I really want to grab something. Let me go into Amazon really quick, find it and order it, or just let me go to the store and just get it. Just because everybody might be wearing it or it's trendy and, you know, it looks nice. But we're not really mindful consumers when we do that. So I think from your experience, you got a lot into ethical and sustainable fashion. And I want to hear your perspective about what does ethical consumerism mean and how can we all become a little bit more ethical consumers?
I think when it comes to ethical consumerism, we have three things that we have to keep in mind. It's who got affected in that process when it comes to labor, to the society, right? Did these people who created the product, whether it's food or accessories like clothing, did these people got paid minimum wage? Did they work under ethical conditions? You know, we read all these stories every day about third world countries having terrible conditions of working, people dying, kids working. You know, this is insane. Like, we have to be very mindful about taking the step of understanding who created this, what's the supply chain behind it. Environmental impact is the second one. So what impact did that have on the environment when it comes to CO2 emissions, to recycling, things like that. And third, the economy, meaning who is now being given this money. Because when it comes to the economy, we always take money from somewhere and we put it somewhere else. Everything you do is an opportunity cost, who you support. For instance, let's say you want to donate. You have a finite amount of money you want to donate, and then you have to make a decision on which non-for-profit, which cause you'll support. So understanding where that money goes, I believe, is very impactful in your decisions. For instance, a huge company like Patagonia, B Corp, you trust that when you buy something from them, they give the amount that they say they'll give to the underprivileged population. So there is a trust behind the action. And of course, it takes a long time for a brand to build that, but once they do, then they win. So I think it might be harder for smaller companies that do take care of these three things I mentioned earlier to gain that trust, but it's on the consumer to take the step to do the research and learn what they're buying and the impact it has. That to me is ethical consumerism. When you you allocate like your time to that process, because what you end up buying becomes more important. You're more connected to the process. So for me, I love, and you know that, like supporting local artists. I love buying things from the street because I'm able to have that interaction with the artists and understand why they created this. What does it mean? How did they do it? What materials they chose to use. This story is unique. For someone else, you know, that they're in a hurry and they just want to purchase something, they might not take the time, they might not care. But that is when policies come in place. Unfortunately, not everybody will care genuinely, but that's why we need to have policies in place to make sure that all consumerism is ethical.
Right. So if
It's a necessity.
it's a necessity, yeah. So if we summarize that really quick, right? So we have to take in the time when we consume something. And obviously sometimes we live in really fast-paced lives, but that is the goal. And it's a two-way street, so we expect the brand to communicate clearly on how they are sustainable, right? How do they actually recycle the products, where the products come from, and then us to pay attention to that. And then there's three main impacts, right? Can you repeat the three main impacts?
Yeah, society, environment, and economy. And really, I'll say something that might sound like a little against the status quo, but I bring it back to my last point. So a lot of brands will do that PR that you are mentioning, like will do that communication, whether or not they're abiding by it, right? So it could be greenwashing when it's fake, or it's legit and they just explain what they did. But to me, after a point, I don't care if the founders, let's say, did it with their heart. I care that they do it because there's another option. Fashion is one of the biggest pollutants in the world, right? And it's getting worse and worse, although we see these trends when it comes to slow fashion, and we'll talk about that later. But to me, it's about, again, policies, regulations, making sure the standards are high, minimum wages are being abided by, and living conditions are able to be achieved.
Yeah. It's really interesting what you're saying, because I remember a couple of years ago when I was in college, we started being really careful about products we use, like cleaning products, like makeup, lotions, anything.
You're the queen of that.
And yeah, and I started getting a lot into essential oils because that was a good substitute, I guess, that, you know, it's a little more pure. But then I started noticing a lot more companies start calling their products vegan or green or whatever. They would just put that
Organic.
umbrella, yeah, organic. They would just put that umbrella word and do the whole marketing to get you to buy them. But like you're saying, we really have to go one step deeper, like look at the ingredients, right? Actually read what they are, kind of have an idea, get educated. And I'm assuming the same thing with clothes, right? Kind of see what they're made of.
100%. And I think in danger to what you're describing with social media is influencers. So a lot of times, yeah, you connect the influencer name plus the organic brand to actually a sustainable purchase when it might not be the case. So this is just like, you know, a little reminder to everyone to stop like paying attention to only words and actually see behind the scenes processes and learn more about what's behind the product.
Absolutely. So, what really brought you into slow and ethical fashion? Like, what was it that really motivated you to learn more about it and get involved and try to make an impact?
Yeah, so, you know, slow fashion, to just make the distinction here, is more of a movement. It's the movement that encourages people to buy less but better quality for the longest available period. So it's really connected to the sustainability mindset, which I've always been interested and passionate about. Firstly, it all started back when I was 15. I came for this sustainable summer program I did at Smith College, and it really opened my eyes to the world of sustainability, to the extent that then when I went back to Greece, I created that club called NGSW to understand how sustainability can impact everyone, every field. Literally, it's not just connected to the environmental aspect, but it's more of a mindset and the things we discussed earlier. So I was very committed to making that known in Greece, but also in the world. And then very fast, my interest in fashion grew. So these things combined led me to researching more about sustainable fashion. And that's when I found Fashion Revolution organization. So I was in the US and I was basically volunteering for the Greek chapter. And it opened my eyes to, first of all, the metrics behind sustainability. So Fashion Revolution has an index that they release every year, and they measure different big companies on all these metrics. And then what I wanted to do, connected to my background in the summer programs, was to help my team back there in Greece create the first sustainable fashion program in Greece. And we did that in Athens during the pandemic. So now people go every summer, students and executives, to learn about this very interesting topic. And really, that's how it all started. As you probably have already told your audience, we have created our own slow fashion company as well, DGR. We make 100% handmade clothes and accessories, with the goal being to really empower women who learned how to knit from their grandmothers. And that to me was the full circle. So adding art, handcrafted items, right? The tradition that we have in Greece of knitting with the slow fashion movement to actually pass a bigger message to the world, which is where I started to do those like informational videos on our Instagram page. And yeah, that was really it when it comes to my journey with fashion. Now it's much bigger. Obviously, it's supported by so many companies, so many people are vouching for slow fashion. So I love seeing it all over the news.
Yeah, there's so many benefits, and it's amazing that like we get to be a bit creative with it and try to contribute as much as we can with DGR. But I'm sure there is a lot of challenges that slow fashion businesses have to face, because the quantity of products made are not as big, right, as the fast fashion. Because fast fashion is probably made in a cheaper way, cheaper material, probably cheaper labor, so they're able to produce more, sell more. And with the slow fashion businesses, a lot of them make per order, right? Make to order based on the need and the demand. So I'm sure that's a big issue. But what other challenges do you see, and how do you think they can be addressed and businesses can overcome that, and it can be an actual trend where people get to follow and it's accessible to everybody?
Yeah. So as any product, really, I would say that these companies face the product market fit. The fact that it's a sustainable item doesn't mean that necessarily will be loved by people. So firstly, is creating something that people will wear and that there is demand for. Then the other struggle is really the cost, because sustainable materials are still, for the most part, more expensive because they require more technology. However, that's not always the case, but a risk, or I would say difficulty, is having access to this. So technology today has increased so much. For instance, they make leather from mushrooms, right? They make all these interesting materials to take away from the toxic ingredients in our clothes, but sometimes, yeah, this happens in like labs, let's say, or places where an artisan that is trying to create something doesn't have access to. So you have to be very resourceful and get connected, I would say, to those organizations such as non-for-profits that have access to these and can give it to you for a lower cost. I know in New York there is a ton really from like thrift stores where you can buy cheap supplies and upcycle clothes, or find, I don't know, some non-for-profits that sell like sweats, and there's a lot going on. I mean, I'm a little out of the loop lately, but I'm pretty sure if you just search online, you'll find a ton of things. You just need to be creative. That's what I will connect it to. Creativity, thinking outside of the box, and being resourceful are really the keys to overcoming these obstacles or any really in your business.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really good insight. And thrift stores, and I guess there's how do you call that when you like recycle clothes?
Yeah, the
the
upcycle.
upcycled.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's cool.
That's the best.
Yeah.
And we all have so many clothes in our closet we don't wear. Like, we can just start from there.
Exactly. Like, just make a day, go through your closets, and donate. Bring it to the thrift store, and
Ask your friends to give you like 2-item sets.
yeah, actually, I did that once with my friends. We like got together, and we all brought like 10 pieces or whatever from our closet, and we exchanged clothes, and
That's
then the
it.
rest donate or yeah.
That's the best.
Yeah. So, how else do you think consumers could play a role in promoting sustainable fashion? Like, obviously, one of the first things would be to make the choice to go ahead and buy that piece of clothing that is made from that sustainable business.
Yeah.
But what else could they do?
Definitely advocate for the right brands and be their voice when they can't. These brands decide to spend on product and they don't have the budget for marketing. That's you, really. You are their marketing, you're their voice. You can tell your friends and educate people. Because the first thing I learned at Fashion Revolution was when you educate someone and you open their eyes on the impact of their choices, they will make the right choice 9 out of 10 times. But they have to be educated first. And that takes time because we all compete for attention. It's not that necessarily are looking at a sustainable product versus a non-sustainable, is that they're looking at 1,000 things at the same time. And you have to really put that information in their head. Why would they need to buy something that has a positive impact? What is the cost of the opposite? Who is being hurt? So it's all about being clear with your message to your friends and your family and explain why this is important to you and why it should be important to them too.
Yeah, no, that's true. And obviously, sometimes there's a high cost to begin with, right? In order to get the right material, to do the research, to go ahead and find it. And sometimes in marketing too, because I think what really attracts me as a consumer is when I like read a tag and it says, oh, if you buy this, you've contributed into getting this many plastic bottles recycled, or you will help and contribute in XYZ way, right? But in order for that tag to get created, there's a lot that goes into it. So how can small businesses and artists that are actually pretty small, right? They're just starting, they're independent, they're not part of a big corporation. What could they do? What kind of practices could they implement so they don't compromise their creativity and their uniqueness, but still be part of this movement? I know you mentioned a big resource is Sustainable Revolution, Fashion Revolution. Is there something else similar to that these artists and small businesses can do?
Yep. First of all, I would say before even talking about organizations, you have other people in the same boat with you. people who are trying to do the exact same. So reach out to them, unite your forces, and exchange networks. Really, that's what I was doing back in the day, like reaching out to other small brands on Instagram, trying to get collaborations, post each other's work, explain why you did this, what's your message, get onto podcasts, join events, things that are free but are accessible, local fairs. For instance, last week I went to another similar like exhibition for small businesses in the city, and they had one or two pieces per table, and they were explaining their story, promoting, like giving them like their cards and giving them discounts. So that's doable, and that's for the most part in all cities. So I feel like that's the easiest thing people can do. Look online for those like fairs and other people in the same category as them, or not necessarily same like category. For instance, if you do footwear, find someone that does hats, accessories, and collab. Like, you don't necessarily outreach to competitors, right? But be creative and find how you can add value to their thing, and vice versa. Now, I wrote down some other organizations to mention.
Awesome. Yeah.
Let me see here. So there is a Sustainable Apparel Coalition, Better Cotton Initiative, and Ethical Trading Initiative that I know. There's a lot of newsletters as well online, where there's some very motivated ethical consumers that highlight sustainable brands. So you can reach out to them for a shout out, a founder story. I feel like newsletters is really the easiest thing to start with. And again, you can provide a small discount in exchange for the person who decided to include you in that newsletter. There's also the opportunity to reach out to mentors and advisors who you know care about this topic, whether it's the environmental side, the social side, or the economic, like business side. There is a lot of people who would support you for free by sharing it with their network or just giving feedback on what you're doing. So it's a lot about putting yourself out there and not being afraid to hear no, because there's definitely for every no a yes out there. And a lot of times founders of all sizes, of all verticals, have this imposter syndrome that, oh, but I don't want to do this, I don't want to go out and talk to people, and they start judging themselves. But it's all in your head, and it's really not going to help you in any way, shape, or form to have this thought. So just say that you're going to do it, and do it. Hold yourself accountable to vouching for yourself and finding these resources, because you know that this matters and you have that goal of making something good for people to buy. So just do it. Follow your instinct and have faith.
Yeah, it's really hard when you get started, because you like focus so much on the product itself, and you're very excited to share it with everybody, and then you don't get, like, people don't reciprocate the same or the way you expect them to.
Yeah,
so it can be
absolutely.
very, very disappointing.
Yeah.
But you're right, like, you have to keep going, you have to throw yourself out there. Like, you never know when you're gonna find the audience that will love what you're producing.
Yeah, and one thing that you talk a lot about is also expectation setting, right? You can expect that from one day to the next you're gonna be in the moon. Like, things take time. You need to find your crowd and your audience and your buyers, your consumers. But really, every feedback is positive feedback to me, because it helps you make whatever you're doing better, improve it, and learn from others. Because at the end of the day, not only you compete for attention, you compete for preferences. Everyone has a different preference. Everyone will have an opinion about your product. They would want it a different color, a different size, a different material, texture, right? So you can know all these things for everybody when you start, but you can know it for a specific group that you go and ask questions to. And that's why you need to find that supportive community of people who will give you that initial feedback for free, to then be able to charge others, because you'll know that people like it and will buy.
And really quick, going back to the consumerism side, right? And us as consumers, we have to remind ourselves that we need to also be patient with our purchases, right? So when we go online and we place an order for a make to order item, it's going to take a certain amount of time to be made, to be kneaded, to be put together, packaged, and then shipped out. So we cannot have that expectation of the 1 day shipping that we're used to from these online services like Amazon, right? We have to be patient. We have to practice patience, really.
And really, the classic saying of you get what you pay for is so true. Quality is not cheap. And that's just the fact. If you want to buy something that is going to be broken or ripped apart in 1 year, then okay. But if you want something that lasts long, you just have to pay, which is the same for anything really. Like any service you buy that is costly, for the most part comes with a purpose behind. But yeah, at the end of the day, I would say the best practice is to not buy anything. That's how you save the world. If you want to buy, though, at least make it a worthwhile purchase.
Right. So how do you see the future of the fashion industry? There's obviously still a lot of big players out there, part of the fast fashion industry, but a lot of other ones are really trying to change the game, right? And really be part of this movement. So how do you foresee that?
I love that question because, I'm all about the future. So I feel like sustainable fashion will continue to be a hot topic for a while till it just becomes a norm, really, with regulations. And the EU in particular is putting extreme measures to factories, to big companies. So I'm very hopeful from that end. I also believe that technology, and in particular AI, will change the game. So, I was reading recently a company got like $14 million investment. They created this AI machine where basically you put your food in and it tells you exactly your food size. Because, how many times do we buy the wrong size? But they took the concept of, the mirror that you have sometimes in fitting rooms and tells you what size is available and what would look good on you. Imagine that for clothes plus. Like, you go in and not only it tells you what size you're wearing, but also create something for you, personalized. I believe personalization is the future for everything, including fashion. And that's what we should do with DGR, really. I think that's it, really, for us. Bringing AI in fashion by eliminating waste and adding style through personalization. So you make something just for a specific person, no imitation available. Therefore, no need for influencer marketing, which has gone out of hand, and that adds on greenwashing. No need for returns and waste because you're actually buying the right size. And now you're involved in that process, so you have sentiment around it. You're connected to it. You can meet the artisans, you can meet the people behind. So it's a whole process where it really changed the game. So to conclude, technology and regulations will take sustainable fashion to a whole other level in the next 5 years.
Wow. Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I loved our conversation, Joe, today. You always come in with really insightful information. We're going to share all the industry players and organizations you mentioned today in the description of this episode. So make sure for anybody that is listening or watching to check that out. And let us know what else you want to talk about, and we'll bring Joe back. Sustainable fashion is an incredibly important topic that is gaining a lot of traction in the fashion industry and beyond. As consumers, to become more aware of the environmental and social impact of their purchasing decisions, they are demanding more sustainable options from the brands they love. This shift in consumer behavior has led to a wave of innovation and creativity in the fashion industry as designers, manufacturers, and retailers seek to develop more sustainable practices. Some of the things we touched upon today during this interview were the importance of using eco-friendly materials such as organic cotton, hemp, or recycled fabrics, the need to minimize waste and carbon emissions in the production processes, the impact of fast fashion on the environment and labor practices, and the role of consumers in driving change by demanding sustainable and ethical fashion options. As a final reminder, sustainability is not just a trend or a buzzword, but an essential part of creating a better future for both people and the planet. By supporting sustainable fashion brands and making conscious purchasing decisions, consumers can play an important role in creating a more sustainable fashion industry that values ethical production and environmental stewardship. To learn more about Namaste City and this podcast, please visit namastecitylife.com and feel free to drop us a message by visiting the Contact Us page. You can follow Namaste City on Instagram or Facebook. If you have not already done so, please go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Thanks for listening to No More Distractions by Namaste City, hosted by me, Sonia. Today's episode guest was Jo Mangiaridou-Onasi. You can connect with her through her personal Instagram page at Jo Mangiu, JOMANTZOU. Thanks for listening.